Good afternoon, everyone. You are all welcome back from our lunch. We are all welcome back from our lunch. It's exactly 1 hour we took from our lunch, and we want to go quickly into the second segment, which will start with our third interactive session to be taken by Mr. Peter Simon Essien of NAPTIP. But before we go into that, I want to recognize the presence of Mr. J.M. Okoronkwo, the Solicitor General of Ebonyi State. He's here representing the Attorney General of Ebonyi State. Sir, please you may stand for recognition. Please let us give him a warm round of applause. I also want to recognize the presence of Mr. I. Alobu, the DPP of Ebonyi State. Please you may stand for recognition. You're welcome. You're welcome. We appreciate the stress you had to go through to get here today. So we'll move quickly to into our second segment properly by reading on page 8 the profile of the first presenter in this segment. His name is Mr. Peter Simon Essien. He's an indigene of Akwa Ibom State. He joined Nigeria Immigration Service in November 1993 as Assistant Superintendent of Immigration. In November 2004, he was appointed a member National Task Force on Human Trafficking and posted to NAPTIP headquarters in Abuja. In January 2006, he was appointed head of operations and posted to Uyo Zonal Command of NAPTIP. In May 2008, he was elevated to the Unit Head Squadron 3 and posted to NAPTIP headquarters, Abuja. In January 2010, he was appointed Zonal Commander in NAPTIP Uyo Zonal Command, which covers Bayelsa, Cross River, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom states. Presently, he is the Unit Head Monitoring and Evaluation Investigation Department, NAPTIP headquarters, Abuja. He has a master's degree in business administration from Adekunle Ajasin University, Akumbo Akoko, Ondo State. He's married with 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Peter Essien.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to take on the topic, investigating human trafficking cases. As we all know, investigation is a very easy topic or course, so to speak. Why do I say that? Is everybody here seated, we are involved in one type of investigation or the other, either in your primary school, in your home, in your secondary school, and where you work. Crime thrives everywhere in the society, and there is no way out. You must be involved in one kind of investigation or the other. 2 places that we all know, definitely as a human being, you would be at least the hospital or the police station. I'm not a police officer. I know one way or the other, you may have a friend, a relation, an extended family relation that has something to do with the police station, and there is no way out. Throughout one day or the other, you must surely be sick, or somebody may be sick, and you have to go to the hospital. So this topic is going to be more of interactive. You have your idea, lessons you've learned, and other things. We share it together and we move forward. The presentation outline, we're going to look at the introduction, definition of terms, elements of crime, purpose of investigation and strategies, Characteristics of human trafficking cases, general consideration, victim and witness cooperation, evidence collection, interview considerations, case file, international cooperation, challenges, expectations, and conclusion. If I may start, I think, let me just start by giving a storyline, a very brief storyline of one case that I was directly involved in human trafficking. There is one, names will not be mentioned here. There was this case of human trafficking that was reported to the agency, and investigation commenced. The victim in question was recruited in Lagos State, transported to Edo State, where the journey commenced. The journey to Europe commenced by route. They boarded a vehicle somewhere in Adowawa in Benin City. As they were going, the victim in question now started asking herself a question: why am I traveling? I'm fairly okay in what I'm doing. Why should I travel? Apparently, she works in a salon, and she's very good, and she has enough customers and patronage in the salon. But one of her customers got her talking into traveling to Spain, where the sister is residing in Spain, and that in Spain she's going to work in a very good place where she will be earning in dollars, where she will be earning hard currency. She now agreed. On their way they had passed Abuja through Zuba, went to Kaduna, passed Kaduna. She now started asking questions. Where am I going to? Where are they taking me to? Suddenly, when they got to an immigration checkpoint and police checkpoint, it was a joint checkpoint, she now informed her that she does not actually know where she's going to. So the bus was cleared, people were interviewed, were separated, she was dropped, and the vehicle was intercepted, taken to immigration formation in Kanu, because it was closer to Kanu. Over the 3 other girls that were traveling with her were rescued. The driver apparently was not aware, and other passengers were not aware. And they were making calls as they were going. They were on their way to Mali. From there, they will now go through Niger and other places, cross the Mediterranean Sea, and over there. But she now aborted the journey in Kanu. The case was handed over to NAPTIP. Investigation commenced. 2 suspects were picked up in Benin City. We continued with the investigation. The case was charged to court, and the agency had conviction. What am I saying? There were a total of 3 of them that were rescued. The other 2 girls were saved as a result of this particular victim that never wanted to travel again. All of them were recruited. They were housed somewhere in Benin City, where the journey commenced. But one of the girls was particularly stubborn. She really wanted, during the course of investigation, she was now annoyed with the other one. And she now said that she wanted to continue with her journey, but eventually they testified. They did other things, but she was stubborn during the period of testifying. The agency had conviction. She now found her way and traveled back again. The final destination should have been Spain, but she ended up in a brothel in Bamako, Mali. She was sexually exploited, abused, and again she was arrested and repatriated back to Nigeria. And the case still came back to our agency. You again? We were all surprised seeing her. She was now telling us stories that she was very stubborn, that she actually thought she was going, and the other girl was very bad, trying to truncate the trip and everything. But this time around, there was no suspect, because the suspect was right there. And at the point of rescue, At the point of their rescue in Bamako, Mali, the suspect had taken off. So she came and no case could be initiated. Nothing was done. But at least she actually saw what she wanted. Lessons to be learned. Then there was another case that we had in the agency. There was a man in Nigeria. He's from Delta State. He goes about from schools to schools in Nigeria. Not only, but he was done going through Delta, Imo, Abia, on that axis, recruiting. When he goes, he will go about, when he sees fine-looking, polished young girls, those are his targets. He will talk to the parents, he will talk to the children, and they will be convinced that he has a film school, an institute for film in Abuja. When he convinces them, these children will be released, that they will be staying with him and also going to school in Abuja, not knowing that he had bad intentions. He recruits them, brings them to his house in Abuja. He will give them very good treatment at the point of recruiting. But he was a very bad man. And the information got to us that the neighbors, that there was a man that is very violent with the wife, violent with the children, abuses the children and other things. You know, children, and when they go out, that he actually recruited some under the guise that they were coming to school and other things. But when they came to Abuja, it was a different ball game. The man abuses the children. He had 2 daughters and 1 son. The son was the smallest. He was residing in America, but I think he had problems. He was repatriated back. All the 3 children were born in America. So when they came back, case was reported. We now went in, rescued all the victims, arrested the man. Invariably, it was a joint operation. So other security agencies were along during the operation, and AK-70 gun was recovered from him. He was brought in. That aspect of arms was handed over to the Nigerian police force. What we got to know during investigation was that the man abuses the children sexually, was very violent with the wife and everybody, at gunpoint, he threatens them. We initiated, continued with the investigation, and that case presently is still in court. So there are other instances other cases that I'll mention to you in course of our presentation. Section 2. Basically what we are talking about here is investigation, investigating human trafficking cases. Section 2, subsection 1A of the TP Act 2005 allows the establishment of investigation department among other departments in NAPTIP. Section 6 of the Act empowers the agency to conduct investigation into cases that are human trafficking based. And the ones that are not on human trafficking, they are handed over to any other security agency that handles and coordinates such cases. And during the course of the investigation, what we are actually looking for is to ascertain if any person has committed an offense under NAPTIP Act. Also to ascertain whether any person has been involved in offenses under the Act. Subsequently, such persons should be, if they are found wanting, there will now be investigation will commence and maybe legal proceedings will be initiated against such a person. Investigation can be looked upon or is a systematic and careful search or examination of any events in order to discover facts that are related to the complaint that has been so made. Human trafficking can simply be defined as the recruitment, transportation, and transfer of vulnerable persons by means of coercion, deceit, threats, or use of force for the purpose of exploitation, and abuse of any person. When we're talking about human trafficking, well, we have the act, the means, and the purpose. The act means the recruitment, the actual process of going about to lure somebody, confuse somebody, and deceive somebody, so that the storyline, whichever storyline you must have informed the person now believes, accepts it because of the way you presented the story. Whereas what is in your mind is actually a different ball game. Transportation, harboring, and receipt of somebody intended for the sole purpose of trafficking, of movement from one place to the other with the sole aim of exploitation. The exploitation here can be sexual exploitation, it can be labor exploitation. Means refers to use of, there are instances that you use threats, you force, deception, coerce, and or you also lure your victim in order for you to succeed. The purpose most of the times is for sexual or labor exploitation. You also determine whether, in investigation, we also determine whether an offense has been committed or a situation, if there is no offense, such a person is cleared and investigation does not continue. During the course of investigation, you identify your victims and witnesses that will be used in course of investigation or for, where there are any legal cases that will so come up. We collect, collate, and safeguard every bit of evidence that has been recovered in the course of investigation, because this may be relevant in the prosecution of the case investigating. Prove the identity of the suspect or person responsible for the crime. There are times people are, during the process of investigation, you are going on raid operation or you are going on arrest. At that point, everybody will be rounded up. When people are rounded up, you don't actually know. At times, the trafficker may even be somebody younger than the victim by slight age differences. So when people get up or arrested, later on you have to try to identify and know who is the suspect, who is the victim. Formulate the grounds for any possible charge that will so arise during investigation for the main purpose of initiating legal proceedings. Document the investigation and evidences in a case file and prepare to present the evidence in court in case the case is to go further. Strategies for conducting human trafficking investigation. We have reactive, proactive, and disruptive investigation. Reactive is victim-led investigation. Proactive is intelligence-led, resulting in arrest and prosecution of traffickers. This is costly in terms of planning and execution. Disruptive is interception before the offense is committed. Or at times, different agencies will come together and carry out that aspect of disrupting it, maybe during movements or before the act is actually committed. Characteristics of human trafficking cases. Human trafficking cases can either be between two countries, from one country to the other, or national in nature, within local government, within village, states, or within the country. Most trafficking cases are sex-related and involve female victims and children. Other cases are labor-related, involving mostly children. Most victims of domestic servitude are under 18 years, and most often they are from very poor backgrounds. Those are the ones that are more vulnerable to be trafficked. General consideration. Initial action taken in investigation are very crucial to the ultimate success of prosecution. When you are carrying out any investigation, in course of doing this, you have to be very, very careful, because the way and manner you started your investigation determines the way and manner this case may actually go. If the case will be won, if the investigation will be completed, if it's going to be a successful investigation or it's not going to be successful. Careful treatment of victims and witnesses upon whose testimony and prosecution depends. The way and manner you handle your victim is a function of how you will succeed. Victims must be pampered. They must be well taken care of. If you are rowdy, if you are rough, the way and manner you elicit for information determines the level of your success or failure. Investigation is more effective if victim and suspects could be assessed during interviewing for collection of collaborating evidence. You have to identify who is the victim, who is the suspect. At times, the first thing you do, once you are carrying out or conducting any investigation, once you've identified the suspect from the victim, the two should be separated. There should be no contact between them. Because we have cases, like there was a case we handled, which we had to travel to Benin City. We had to go to the Ayilala Shrine, Babalawo. That was the first time of my going to an Ayilala Shrine. In fact, I was afraid. But as an investigator, we now left. We left from Abuja, arrived Benin, documented ourselves in the office of the Commissioner of Police. We now got armed police escort. We proceeded to the Ayilala Shrine. The victim was so much afraid, they were shaking. We now said, there's no problem. Please, sir, you people will die. Please, sir, you people will die. We said, nobody will die. We continued. We went right inside the bush. Before then, we had gone on raking. We had done underground cover. Initially, the first day we went around the shrine. We saw things for ourselves. The man was there. We now came back. So on the day of the operation properly, we were well armed because it was a very good case. We now went, rounded up the shrine, went in. If you saw the Yilala, he was so afraid. He was shaking. We gathered things, removed things, brought the Yilala. When we now came to police headquarters, Benin, where the victims were, they were suppressed. Is this the Yilala, the man that terrorized us, the man that tormented us? You know, investigation commenced. I think that case, Naptip had conviction. But, the Yilala was doing his work. So to speak, he was not actually involved in the trafficking. It was the suspects. The Yilala, in fact, even came and testified against the traffickers. But the victims were so relieved when they saw that what they thought was impossible was a very possible and easy task. And it was done with ease. Investigator and prosecutors must work together. Most often, for any case to succeed, if you are handling any investigation cases, just like the case even in your house, at times you see the husband and wife must come together. If your son, a family member, or an outsider has done something that entails the family should work together. You see, both parents must come together. At the children's age, either the brother or sister, you come together to work. So most often the investigators and the prosecutors, there are so many cases, or almost all cases, you liaise with each other, you will be rubbing minds, and you know the way forward. Also, we have the counseling and the rehabilitation department. Most of the times, the victims at times may even be more difficult to those people in the investigation department. They look at you as a law enforcement agent. They look at you as a police officer. They look at you as a naval officer. Whereas those in the counseling and rehab department, after they have been rescued, taken to the shelter, after some days they are relaxed. At times they give more information to the counselors. When they are with them, they'll be watching TV, they are now relaxed, and they now actually know that no harm. They are in safe hands. They also open up to the counselors. So the tendency is that Those of us in investigation department, during course of investigation, we fall back on the counselors for additional statements and information, which helps us to go back for further investigation. Investigators should also work with NGOs. There are NGOs that are human trafficking based. We also have some faith-based organizations that are human trafficking based. We work, collaborate with them. They give us information which helps us in the course of our work. Investigators achieve results when victims are taken along and cared for. I think that is self-explanatory. Just like in your house, if you are always attacking your child, you are not friendly with your child, you see that child is withdrawn. Whereas anyone that is you are close to, you carry the child along, you see the child comes close to you. So even the people, once you are rescued and you are antagonistic, you are not friendly with the victim, they are withdrawn and they don't play on with you. Show compassion and make the victim feel comfortable during interview. Calm them down. Let their nerves be down. And you see whatever information you need will be given to you. Separate victims from suspects early enough and let them know that they have not committed any offense. Once you do that, at least 80% of your work has been solved and everything is bound to move on freely and smoothly. You hardly have any problems. The trafficking protocol and TP do not allow for criminalization of victims in any way whatsoever. Victims are to be taken care of. Once you look at them as criminals, then you have problem in course of your investigation. Taking of statements of all parties related, you are the one that is involved of taking of statements because these statements will likely be presented in court. Seizure of potential relevant items such as mobile phones, identity cards, document, travel tickets, and other things fall within the ambits of the investigation department. You collect them, keep them safe, and those ones are handled by the exhibit keeper, handed over to the exhibit keeper. Investigators should also take photographs or video in course of investigation. Evidence could be gathered through observation using the 5 senses of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. No information should be ignored when investigating any case because you don't know the one that will be relevant to you in course of investigation, during further investigation, when writing your investigation report, when trying to obtain additional statements, when cross-examining the suspect. Any information should not be ignored. When obtaining statements from the suspects, cautionary words has to be involved. The suspect has to sign the statement so obtained. The statements will be signed by you and countersigned by a senior officer. In case the suspect claims that he does not understand the language, it's better you bring somebody that understands the language of the suspect to handle that case and take the statements. Statements of victim also should be taken by somebody, at least where the victim does not understand English, by somebody that understands the language of the victim that has been so rescued. Because all this will help during investigation, after investigation, and when a case is initiated against the trafficker. It must be conducted in a very simple language. When you are carrying out any investigation, during the process of questioning or interviewing the victim or cross-examining the suspect, these things must be done in very easy language that they will understand. Investigator who is fluent in the language of the person being interviewed and the cultural affinity may be more successful in any investigation. A friendly, formal, and relaxed approach should be adopted when you are carrying out any investigation. Because at times, the way you carry out your investigation determines the level of success. Even the trafficker, when the trafficker believes in you and feels nothing will happen, the trafficker will open up, the suspect will open up to you. Statements are obtained, documented, and the right thing that has to be done will be done. Before the suspect knows it, it's too late. The case file had been passed to legal. The next thing, is proffered, he's being served, and the case goes to court. There was this case we handled in Akwa Ibom State. There was one violent man who was married to a young girl. He was always violent with the wife. The wife had to pack out of the house, leaving the 13-year-old sister trying to run for her dear life. The man later impregnated the 13-year-old girl. We were informed, letters of complaint came in. We went to the man's shop. He was a welder. He was arrested. When he was arrested, he came to the office. He was making noise, saying all sorts of things, that the 13-year-old girl is the wife, that we should do whatever we want to do. He was kept, statement was obtained. He agreed that he was the one and that nothing can be done in this Nigeria, and that is the wife. He was put in cell. He signed. We said it's a bailable offense. Somebody should come and take him on bail. Everybody that came refused to take him on bail, that they know him is a violent man. The case file was passed to legal. Legal briefing was done. The case was taken to court. In the court, on the first day, the man agreed, saying that is the wife, that he impregnated the wife. He said all sorts of things. He was asked over and over. He was sentenced that very day. That very day he was sentenced. A friendly, formal, and relaxed approach should be. He pleaded guilty. No, yes. He accepted. He said he committed the offense and he was guilty. Yes. Investigation should be fluent in the language. A friendly formal should be adopted. The interview should not be conducted in a hurry. Enough time should be given for all interview and interrogation in human trafficking cases, just like any other criminal case. Allow the person being interviewed, especially the victim, to set the pace. There are some victims that are withdrawn, especially when you are interviewing them for the first time. And there are some that were so traumatized and some that actually wanted somebody to rescue them. Immediately they come to the office. Oh, Lord Jesus. They will be telling you the whole story and they're saying it from the bottom of their heart. The trauma they passed through, the experiences, the nasty experiences, because it was not actually what they expected to get at the other end. Those ones never knew they were to be trafficked for either sexual exploitation or labor exploitation. Those ones thought it was a genuine movement as they were leaving their homes, as they were leaving their villages or their parents. It was actually going to be rosy over there. But on going there, the reverse was the case. So they are always very annoyed. At times, while narrating their experiences, they start crying. It's very terrible. There are some, at times, they will be narrating their experiences and stories. Even you want to shed tears, you just call another person to come and step in. You have to go out, go and clean your eyes, wipe and relax before coming back. I'm telling you, it's very bad. Respect the feeling and the rights of the person being interviewed. Don't work in an atmosphere, work in a very conducive atmosphere. Respect their rights to freedom, right to speech, right to everything. And let them say out their mind, let them speak out. Confidentiality should be respected. Confidentiality should be respected. Whatever they say, please, should be treated with utmost secrecy. And anything they tell you, please don't divulge it out. Ask only questions that are relevant to the case that you are handling. Because there are some people that you ask questions, you deviate, you flank, and they flare up. Let it be is the particular person you are interviewing or questioning that derails, goes out to tell you other stories. You quietly listen to the person, and you now add 1 plus 1, and you get the answer. Gender issues should be taken into consideration, and this has to be done with all seriousness it deserves. Case file. Preparation of the case file, investigation case file. Okay, let me just allow the person being interviewed, especially the victim, to set, no, understand, to set the pace. That is, as you are interviewing the person, let the person flow and move along and say what, and you now follow. You'll be guiding. Respect the feeling and right of the person being interviewed during the process of. Confidentiality should be respected. Ask only questions that are related to the case. Gender issues should be taken into consideration. If it's a female, know the way and manner, know the rights of the question, the level of the question, and the way it should go. There are certain questions that you need a female. If you're a male investigator handling it, there are certain questions you will need a female investigator to come help, assist, and ask. Also, if you're a male, there are certain questions, and you're a female that were vice versa. You need a male investigator to come in and help. That's why in most cases, we always attach a male and a female. Nobody goes for arrest alone. Either 2, 3, 4, or 5 people will always will be involved in an arrest. Minimum is 2. And during the process of investigation, minimum also is 2. Most of the times, it's always male and female. Also, when the case file is passed to legal, for legal opinion, at least 3, they will take into consideration, there will be either 2 or 3 legal opinions. Somebody will prefer this, another one, and so that you know where the pendulum swings. Case file. The case file should contain all facts and evidences about a complaint which is being investigated. You have to be very, very thorough. You must be careful. If not, you blunder. Even when the case file, at times you may handle a case, investigate the case, you'll be finding yourself that a thorough job has been done. Oh, Peter ICN, this is a very thorough job. Once it's sent to legal, that is Madame Day. She will ask you all sorts of questions, and the case file will be returned to you for further investigation. Because there are certain salient points that she has seen that if it goes to court, the agency will not gain conviction. You will start all over again. If the case was investigated in a very interior village, and either the suspect was taken on bail or the victim has been reunited, you have to start all over it. Going to and correct language. During the process of investigation, when you must have gathered all the facts, you must have interviewed the victim, interrogated the suspects, obtained statements, coupled the case file. This should be done in a very simple and clear language. Case file usually contains the following. When a case file is coupled, it contains the following: index to case file, extract from crime diary, letter of complaint, statements of the complainant, the person that actually lodged the report, statements of the suspect, statements of the victims or witnesses, any other relevant documents or information that will help you in that case, or all relevant documents and information, investigation report, facts investigation, summary of statements, findings, recommendation, minutes sheets. All these are requirements which should be inside the case file for the case file to be complete, so that if the case file goes to legal, the agency may likely gain conviction from the particular investigation in question. International cooperation. This requires international exchange of information and assistance between bodies, agencies, cooperation at the international level between two countries. Human trafficking cases, most at times, are within the country and also transnational. International cooperation mostly has to do with the transnational aspect of human trafficking. Victims or offenders may originate outside the country and also outside the jurisdiction. It deprives the trafficker of any safe haven out there when we now bring in the international cooperation aspect of it. Because cases that started here and have been taken outside can always be investigated over there and returned back to the country. It makes work of investigators easier. Forms of international cooperation: extradition, mutual legal assistance, transfer of criminal proceedings, transfer of sentenced persons, cooperation of confiscated deprived trafficker, joint investigation, cooperation in using special investigative techniques. Challenges. Human trafficking is clandestine in nature. The victims hardly volunteer information unless when the case is well handled and managed. There's always language barrier, so one has to be very careful. And you must make sure you have most investigators should cut across board. People with different languages, sign language interpreter, people that speak French and other languages. Lack of modern investigation equipment. Lack of conducive interviewing room. Most places, most of the times, it's not always there, but we try to make up with the ones we have and also try to improve upon it. Inadequate data or information on traffickers. Legal challenges: smuggling of migrants, sale of babies, or sham marriages, and organ donation. Limited funding. Expectations: act professionally, impartially, and objectively, bearing in mind the importance of investigation. As an investigator, you must be very sound. During the process of investigation, you must act professionally. You must be honest, straightforward. Your conduct must not be found to be wanting. You must not be partial, objective, bearing in mind the importance of investigation. Thorough documentation of all facts of the investigation to ensure that statements and physical evidences are brought together. When needed, it should be used for such a purpose. Respect the dignity of all parties involved. Critically analyze the need to identify the offense, the person responsible, and collect sufficient evidential data to prove the case in court. And this makes the work of the legal departments to be good, to be easy for them. Effectively use the necessary tools and available resources with you in executing your investigation. Conclusion. Well, I just feel it's my belief that the value has been added to whatever you must have known before. And as we all go back home, we look forward to a robust cooperation, whether this is formal, informal, otherwise, as the case may be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Essien. And I hope we're keeping our questions and keeping tabs on it so that we can all ask that in the next, at the last session, which is the panel question and answer time. It is now time for us to move to our last presentation for the day. It's actually going to be a two-pronged presentation. A two-pronged presentation by Mrs. Udugbeson Tolulola. She's a Chief Intelligence Assistant with NAPTIP. She's going to be talking to us on very important aspects. The first one is the protection of victims, witnesses, issues, and consequences. And then she's going to be talking to us about the relevance of the NAPTIP Victims of Trafficking Trust Fund. If you remember, if some of us were there at the last CWAG workshop, that was one of the issues that prompted this workshop, the issues of victims fund. You know, there is a fund actually. We learned at that workshop that there is actually a fund, but it's the implementation that is a problem. So today we are going to be hearing it as it is actually presently for Mr. Dugbeson. So today, let us listen to a brief profile of Mr. Dugbeson. It's not in your profile, so you may as well listen. She holds a bachelor degree in agricultural science and master's in industrial labor relations. She's currently pursuing a PhD gender studies in the University of Abuja. She has been in NAPTIP since 2004. She's a member, National Association of Social Workers. She's the head, NGO unit, Counseling and Rehabilitation Department of NAPTIP. She's married with children. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Mrs. Udugbeson.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I stand on all existing protocols. My topic is protection of victim, witnesses, issues, and consequences. When we talk of protection, we are trying to protect the victim. We are trying to protect the victim who has been traumatized. We are trying to protect the victim to raise her self-esteem and bring her back to her full self. Contents: introduction, who is a victim witness, what is victim witness protection, the legal framework for protection of victim witnesses, rationale for victim witness protection, methods of protection of victim witnesses, consequences of witness protection, and our conclusion. The victims of crime, in many cases, are essentially witnesses in the prosecution of crime. Victim witnesses within the context of trafficking in persons are prosecution witnesses in trafficking in person cases. Victims as witnesses in prosecution of traffickers need protection. Why do victims need protection? Because they are risking their lives to give testimonies and stand against that man who has taken everything they have from them. They are coming from a very, very poor and lonely place. So they need to testify. Because if they don't, then what we are all standing here to talk about will continue in a magnitude that we cannot imagine. Sorry? Okay. What is victim witness protection? Victim witness protection refers to all actions by persons who have institutional responsibilities, like you and I, like the investigator, like the police officer, like the social worker, like the counselors. It is our responsibility in protecting persons who are victims of crime and who come under their care and control. It is geared towards ensuring that victim witnesses are treated with dignity and respect, and that their privacy is respected. Why? Because human trafficking is a violation of human rights. It is both a cause and a consequence. When human rights are violated, it leads to human trafficking. And when their rights are taken from them, they do not have any dignity, they do not have any self-esteem. You can do anything with them. They feel that they are worthless because of what they have experienced. Legal framework. Section 47 of the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition and Administration, TPA Act 2015, provides for witness protection. Under the section, the court undertakes some measures in ensuring victims' protection in the following manner: holding the proceedings at a place to be decided by the court, avoidance of real name and address of the witness in its order judgments, issuing a directive that the identity and address of the witness is not disclosed, prohibiting publication of the court proceedings capable of revealing the identity of the witness. The penalty for violation of the above provision is conviction to imprisonment for a period not less than 5 years. Also, Section 47 of the NAPTIP Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act, TPA Act 2015, corroborates Section 232 of the ACJA 2015. Section 233 provides for the shielding of the identity of the witness by providing a safer, secure way of getting evidence by video link, permit the witness to be screened or masked, receive written deposition on expert evidence, and any other measure that the court considers appropriate in the circumstances. The penalty is 1 year imprisonment. Other relevant provisions for protection of victims are Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Child Rights Act. I'm happy, I think CJ was saying that the Child Rights Act had been adopted here in Calabar. What is the rationale for victim witness protection? Traffickers operate a modus operandi of organized criminal groups, and for them the principle is simple: remove the witness and avoid prosecution. We all know that human trafficking is a multi-billion naira industry. So what would a trafficker not do to ensure that money coming to him through human trafficking continues? It's very big trafficking ring. If you go to some communities in Nigeria, you find out that most of the houses, most of the properties that are there are built from proceeds of human trafficking. You can ask around. They'll tell you, oh, please, I may use names, but they are not the real names of the victims. We are here to protect the victims, and I'm here to see that we do that. So you find out that maybe a street full of 10-story buildings, beautiful houses, they are built by proceeds from human trafficking. And so instead of, I'm living fine, I have so much investments, I have so much dollars in my account, what would it cost me from stopping whoever is going to make sure that that status that I have continues? They must be done away with. I'm not going to court. I'm not going to prison for anything. Whatever will stop me, I must continue with that lifestyle. And that is why witness protection is very important, and it was adopted. The origin of witness protection is from America. In the 1970s, when we had all these criminal organizations, especially the mafia, and nobody wanted to come forward to testify against them. There was an unwritten code of silence. Nobody wanted to come and testify against their boss who they had formerly worked for. And the government needed to prosecute the mafia organization and put them in prison and set things straight. So, and those that came out were either killed, murdered, or disappeared suddenly. So, but with the advent of the witness protection program, they were able to get a lot of convictions and put a stop to the mafia organization's operations. The rationale for victim witness protection continue to protect victim witness from threats and intimidation by the traffickers, to obtain efficient and cost-efficient convictions, to eliminate re-traumatization and re-victimization of victim witnesses. We've spoken so much about what victims go through, but it is better heard than imagined. I would have loved for us to be able to hear from the victims themselves. It's not my word, but when you hear it with the emotion, that they will speak, you will know it is not a joke. What we are standing here for today, if you are not emotionally strong, if you are not spiritually strong, and you do not know how to hold on to whatever you believe in, whether you are a Muslim or a Christian, it will break you. It will break you. There have been instances whereby you are talking to a victim and the odor that emanates from her, you cannot stand it, but you dare not show it in either what you say or your expression. You hold it in. The smell of vision, you the trafficker. And in that desert, there are no houses, only mud houses. And you give her out to a man, and she says no. And the next thing you do, in the process of initiating her, you take it upon yourself to rape her. A girl whose breasts are not formed yet, a girl who has not started menstruating. And because you find it difficult to penetrate her, you put her on drugs so that her muscles would relax. And then you use a bottle to insert inside her private part to open up her vagina. What type of trauma do you think that child will go through? Do you think it is something that will go away in a lifetime? Possible, destroy her, murder her family. They are ready to do anything. And we are talking of control mechanisms. How do the traffickers achieve these? They use control mechanisms. Like you said, everybody has been saying about the witch doctor, this and that. They are true. Like Mr. Essen was saying, in my life, I have never seen a witch doctor. But in NAPTIP, we had a case of a 30-year-old victim. And all counseling, everything done to her to bring her out of her shell proved abortive. When it is 3 o'clock in the night, that is when she will wake up and start screaming and shouting something is turning her head. You cannot leave her alone. She became a problem to the counselor and a problem to the fellow victims she was staying with. And then she will naked herself, remove all her clothes, and start shouting and screaming. We went for night duty one Sunday evening, and I was called. I was the shelter manager then. And lo and behold, she's a bit robust. Do you know what she did? She climbed into the ceiling, and she couldn't come out at the other end because of her size. So she was hooked between the outside of the roof and the inside of the room where she stayed. We had to go and call carpenters to come and dislodge that part of the roof so that she could come out. When she now came out, Auntie, that thing, it did turn my head. I'm sorry, please. I want to speak as they are speaking. Maybe I can get my message across. Auntie, that thing I tell you, it did turn my head. It did turn my head. She was just not herself. Incoherent, traumatized. So, and I said, okay, what do you think we can do? She said, my auntie, unless maybe make them bring that juju man. Maybe if they bring him because he collect my blood. He collect my sanity towel. The picture of my mama, my baba, my two pikin, he did with him. I don't know what thing he do with him. But as I talk, I just did see him. He just did go round, just did go round. But thank God, we liaised with the investigation department. We went to Benin. We brought the juju man. When we brought him, he set up his all his paraphernalia and whatever in the office there. I almost ran away, if not because I was connected with the case. I've never seen a witch doctor in my life before. I stood like this. I had, I was peeping. I don't talk now. I don't know what to say, please. Even as I'm talking, you can say I'm a bitch. I don't know what to say, please. Do you know that this man came in, all the pictures, and she was telling the truth that the victim said he had. He brought them out. I remember you now. This one, that one. All the items they had collected from her, this used sanitary towel with blood was wrapped up in a paper and sellotaped. Her fingernails, her hair, everything was there. And they made her stand in front of him and started turning around, and he revoked the oath that he had put on her. It was after all this had been done that we were able to calm her down and counsel her, and she was able to testify against the trafficker. So it's not a joke. It's not just a story. They are real stories. The stories we are telling are the life history of some of these victims of human trafficking. Methods of providing protection for victim witnesses. In NAPTIP, we have different departments, counseling, investigation. But protection doesn't just start at investigation. Immediately the victims are brought to us, protection of that victim starts till after conviction. Protection tools we use during rehabilitation include National Policy on Protection and Assistance to Trafficked Persons in Nigeria, Guidelines for Protection of Children in Formal Care, Operational Guide for Monitoring and Evaluating Protection Assistance Services for Trafficked Persons, Guidelines on Referral Mechanism for Protection and Assistance to Trafficked Persons in Nigeria. During rehabilitation, the aim of rehabilitation is to restore the victim back to her normal self. So what are the services we provide? Reception. At reception, we receive them in a warm and friendly manner. Once you get that wrong from the beginning, that you are supposed to treat her like a friend, first appearances count a lot. You need to make her your friend, make her feel happy, so that, oh, I have a friend here. Auntie, you are my first friend here. I will tell you what is wrong with me. You know? And then you should be able to identify who is a trafficker and who is a victim right from reception. If you don't, the trafficker will still be intimidating the victim in the shelter where you are taking them to. And once you get it wrong there, the whole system is wrong. Sheltering. The shelter is a home away from home. You must have a secluded shelter. The shelter is not a zoo for tourists. The identity of the address of the shelter is meant to be in secret, because traffickers can come. They want to carry out reprisal attacks on the victim and anybody who is standing in their way. Anybody who is ready to bring the trafficker down, the trafficker is ready to do away with. So the address of the shelter is kept confidential. Counseling. Counseling is treating the emotional, the mental, and the social well-being of that victim. The victim is traumatized. And trauma is as a result of post-traumatic stress disorder. The victim is in trouble, she's traumatized. How can you treat her? Counseling, psychotherapy counseling. You treat her with drugs, you talk to her. Counseling is talk technique. You talk and talk and talk to her. And when in the process of talking, you use techniques. There are techniques you use in counseling. You don't just talk to her anyhow. You must be gender responsive. Anything you are doing must be gender responsive. Because if you do not apply techniques that are gender responsive, what you are trying to protect, you are going to end up doing the same thing to the victim. For example, if you have a female victim of human trafficking and the counselor you are pointing to her is a man, it's not done. The moment the counselor starts talking to her, maybe the counselor has, sexy eyes, and he looks at her somehow. The next thing she'll say, hey, you don't come again. No. She feels that, you are ready to start having sexual relations with her. But if it is a woman, she knows that it's not possible, although there are always exceptions to the rule. You don't touch her. Once you touch her, the trauma she has experienced, she will just go up again. He wants to touch me. He's going to rape me again. He's going to rape me again. And she starts all sorts of nonsense. So you must be gender responsive. And when you are gender responsive, whatever time you give to a female victim is the same time you give to a male victim. Because of gender inequality, that is why we have human trafficking, because of the vulnerability of the female child. It's not that the boys are not being trafficked. 80% of the victims of trafficking that we have are women and girls. So whatever services you are going to deliver to them must be gender sensitive. You must ensure gender equity. The same time you use for a male victim, you use the same time for the female victim. When you are giving them toiletries, you must give them gender sensitive toiletries. You give the boys boxers, you give the girls sanitary towels. You don't put the two toilets together, you separate the male toilet from the female toilet. Healthcare services. We all know victims of human trafficking are traumatized. Some come back with sexually transmitted infection, sexually transmitted diseases, anemia, skin rashes, mental disorders that, if not treated, could lead to personality disorders, etc. Anemia, HIV and AIDS. It's unbelievable. You get a girl trafficked, you get her impregnated, and you cannot afford, out of all the proceeds of the expedition, to take her to a good hospital. You just do the abortion for her. In the room there, she should raise up her legs, and you use a hanger, and you bring out the fetus. And she's bleeding for 6 months continually. 6 months until blood that is meant to be red turns to blue, until blood turns to green, and you still tell her to continue servicing men. She should use the sandwich towel to block the flow of blood, and she's still servicing men. I don't know. I don't know. Under normal circumstances, even when she's having her menses, you give her sandwich towel to block the flow of blood, she should still be having sex with men. Not to talk of when she is infected. Family tracing. Before you hand over your victim to her family after counseling and all these services, you need to do a family tracing. When you do family tracing, you need to know what are the causes, what made the girl to be trafficked in the first instance. Is it the family? And then because when you want to reunite the family, you need to know, are you handing her over to her real family, or you are handing her over to the trafficker in disguise? The trafficker could be a family member. The trafficker could even be the husband. So you need to do a family tracing, find out what are the causes of trafficking in that family, and sort them out. And when you are doing it, you must ensure that you are gender responsive. When you are gender responsive, because when you are gender responsive, you must ensure that all the women in that family, in that community, are involved. If they are not involved, anytime that girl comes back, the men will only take control, and the women are not heard. But in her integration back into the society, it is the women that will console her. It is the women that will be her friends. And we also, at this point, also, when we do that, we need to know and tell our communities that we must be gender sensitive. We must treat the female child equally as the male child. There's no better child. Because it is the belief that the male child is better than the female child. The female child can be done away with. She doesn't need to go to school. She can be sold off. She can, you all the bad things you have on her. But the male child, oh, he's my son. No, they are both before God. Return and repatriation, spoken about, family tracing, empowerment. Our victims, they come in as victims. But we want them to evolve into survivors. How do we do that? They come in with low self-esteem, no source of financial means. We empower them. How do we empower them? We empower them with life skills, so that we are building her dignity. We are building her self-esteem. We are making her feel confident. She has money. Her confidence is rising. But while at the shelter, you've been telling her, you've been cheated upon. Your rights have been taken away. But with her self-esteem, she can stand up when you tell her that what the trafficker did to you is very bad. Now she has the self-esteem to face that trafficker. She has involved, not from a victim, she becomes a witness. Then she can stand before the trafficker and say, you did me wrong. And I'm going. The goals you need to set with her, and at each point in time, when those goals are to be met, so that when certain things happen, she does, auntie, but you didn't tell me this. Oh, auntie, I don't trust you. It's as if I don't want to trust you again. Oh, no. You don't do things behind her. Everything you do with her must be planned, and you must discuss with her. Disengagement. There must be a time for disengagement when you hand her over to her community. But, she has evolved from a victim to a witness. She has given her consent that she'll testify against that man in court. So what do? You make sure that you have a line of communication open with her. You call her. Call her. How are you, my dear? Are you sticking to our plan? You know your court case is coming up on so date. Any changes, she'll talk to you. All these will help you to have an upper hand when you go to court, and would ensure that you get a conviction in court. Protection services during the judicial process. Our victim has survived. She came in as a victim. She's now a survivor. She has survived the shelter. Her self-esteem has been built. Now, she needs to face that man that treated her like that. So we need to protect her also during the judicial process. Witness assistance is provided. You brief her on all aspects of criminal trial to provision of psychosocial during the trial. Here, you tell her, this is what is going to happen in court. You are going to see some people wearing white wigs and white gown. Don't be afraid, though. It's not that babalawo in another form. They are here to help you. You tell her, if they ask you this question, always stick. And in NAPTIP, we have an internal SOP, whereby it is mandated that for each victim, a team is composed of the investigator, the counselor, and the lawyer. so that everybody works together to ensure that we get conviction in court. And then during witness assistance, we must ensure that the institutional authorities like the social worker, for example, they are done, the counseling is done in a professional manner. You need to do what you are doing and to show that you have learned certain skills so that you do your job very well. You don't ask open-ended questions. Just ask direct questions. Your attending skills, your counseling skills, all those skills as a social worker must be put in place. You must be empathetic, not sympathetic. When you are empathetic, you feel for her, but you control yourself. When she says, auntie, do you know, this trafficker, this man, this John, when he said that I should sleep with Nosa, do you know, auntie, I didn't want to do it, but do you know that John called 3 other people, and he held me down, and he was raping me, and they were raping me, and then you start crying. So where do we go from there? Who is helping who? Now, so who is the victim now? Are you you have become the victim? So you need to control yourself, you know. It's hurtful. That's why I said you hear certain things, but you need to be professional. You need to guard yourself and say, God, God, God. Just, you know, and hold yourself. It's stressful. It's very stressful. It's psychologically stressful for the victim and for you who is attending to her, both the investigator and the lawyer, because things that you can't even fathom, you will hear them. So you need to hold yourself. And then alternative measures to witness protection program, target hardening. You just increase the police protection around the area when you know that there's a threat to the victim. And then procedural protection. This is what we use when we have victims of human trafficking. And then self-protection is when, you know, there's no established witness protection or it doesn't have any guidelines or protocols to it. And then you give the victim a lump sum, just go and look after yourself and all that. We've done that too in NAPTIP, whereby we had to relocate a woman whose husband was the one that actually trafficked her, and she had 4 children. So when she was brought back, we didn't allow him to know that she was back. We didn't allow him to know anything. We just relocated her straight away. In procedural protection, when we are protecting victim witnesses, we use 3 types of measures as detected by the ACJA 2015 and the TIPP Act. It's not that we just work alone. Everything we done has a legal perspective to it. And in procedural protection, we have measures to protect the victim from fear and intimidation of the trafficker, measures to protect their identity, and measures also to protect them from the media and from psychological stress. Measures to protect them from fear, from having a face-to-face confrontation with the trafficker at pre-trial statements. You can collect them from the victim before the date of the trial. You can remove the defendant from court, the trafficker from court. When he gives his own side of the story, you take him out of court, let the victim respond. And then when she's responding, you make sure that he's not there. Because in your sight of seeing him, the case is gone. She won't even say anything. She won't say anything. And then, you know, there are some traffickers that are, you know, full of themselves as well. Even though we know you are the trafficker, but there must be a way that you could be diplomatic about your behaviors. It could be, sorry ma, this bottle of water. But between the trafficker and the victim, we know that this bottle of water signifies something, like Madam was saying this morning. If the bottle of water has been in the trafficker's room, and when he wants to sexually exploit her, he may tell her that the souls of your mother, your father, and all your family relations are inside this bottle. And the moment I open it, they fly away, and they are dead. So you won't know, but he is there, and he brings the empty bottle of water in front of him. You think he needs a drink of water, but he'll just be looking at her like this and drawing attention to the bottle. But between the two of them, they know. So the moment she sees this, she won't dare say anything again. So you need to be very close to your victim to know the control measures and the control methods the trafficker has been using to keep her under lock and key. Then others are shielding of the victim in court. You can shield the victim, but you know, there must be either the judge or one of the lawyers must be able to see the victim so that she doesn't see the trafficker. Another one is video conferencing in the 232 ACJ. It's also there. You record the victim's statement. She's absent in court, but she's also there. She may be in an adjoining room. She's seeing what is happening, but she cannot be seen, but she knows what is happening. Factors to consider when setting up a victim witness protection, the need versus the want. We all know that victim witness protection is very expensive. So when you are setting it up, the victim maybe use a particular lifestyle. Does she need to be in this environment, or this is where she wants to be? So you as a counselor need to advise her, where should she be and where should she not be? And you need to take account the amount of money that is being allocated to her, to relocate her, to resettle her, the type of criminal events that are taking place in that environment. It's not that you are rescuing her from one crime and then putting her in an environment to also be susceptible to another crime. And then how often these crimes occur. Legislation versus policy. Any protection that is carried out on the victim to protect her must be based on fundamental human rights. Her rights have been violated. Right to life, right to education. Whatever you are doing, you don't re-victimize her. You don't do things out of the box. You don't do things without a legal backing. You must ensure that everything you are doing is within the ambit of the law. Because when you come to court today, money for transportation, maybe the victim is trying to settle herself, her business is falling, she needs to attend to other things. So everything you are doing must be legally based. The program location, should the program be within the police or within the judiciary? Well, it could be within the police, but a special arm of the police so that it has autonomy. And it should be free from the judiciary and free from investigation. They should operate on their own. The organizational structure, is it at the national level, at the federal level, or at the state level? Whether it's at the federal level or at the state level, all activities must be centralized. They must have a uniform mandate, and they must work together, that every service that is delivered to the victim or the witness is done uniformly. Not that what is done in Zamfara is different from what is done in Lagos. Then personnel. We've spoken about personnel, professionalism. Personnel are very important when you have a victim witness protection program. They are the ones that will look after the victim. But they must be professionals. They could be lawyers, they could be social workers, they could be anybody, but they must be trained. You need people to work on their system. And you need to pay salaries. You need to also train them. You need to train them. And you also need to check their physical and psychological status. Don't put someone who has psychological problem to work with victims. You are putting fire with fire. Somebody that is not psychologically balanced, that is maybe having domestic violence issues, that the husband is beaten every day. You say she should come and treat a victim of human trafficking. Now, wow, story go. Maybe the victim will not cancel the person. That's not how you do for a man, no. When he touches you like this, you too, you do shakara. That's how we, you know. So it's you know, you look at the psychological state, because those victims are very blunt and they are very intelligent, and they do not give a damn. They will tell you the truth. Auntie, I like you today. Oh. You just the swagger. Hey, auntie, you know, say that my boyfriend. That's the trafficker she's talking about. Oh. She'll just be giving you hints. She'll just be giving you hints. So you just need to be very wise, very professional, and try to follow them. It's not every victim that will give you the answers you want when you are sitting down and counseling her. But when you have a relationship with her, you can sit with her and be gisting. Come and tell me about that, your mom, your daddy. She'll just, my mama, Now she introduced this, my boyfriend, to me. Before you know that there's a link between the mother and the trafficker. Funding. We know witness protection is very, very expensive. And in Nigeria, we are getting there. In NAPTIP, we are trying. But you know, we don't have, NAPTIP does not generate any funds. Even the assets that are forfeited or seized from traffickers go to the victim of trafficking fund. Transparency and accountability with money. There must be receipts, there must be evidence for services rendered. And it has a different reporting and auditing technique because of confidentiality. It's not anybody you can call, come and check this our account. It's a witness protection program. Everything must be done in confidentiality. How do we enter the victim witness protection? Who nominates or who suggests anybody? Can be done by the judge, the lawyer, the prosecutor. What type of threat is he issuing? Is he saying he's going to kill her or he's going to destroy her properties? And then are they capable of doing that? Has that trafficking organization been doing that? Are they able to do that? Or it is an empty threat? And then the value of the testimony of the witness. That testimony she's giving, can it be obtained from any other victim? Or there are likely stories from other victims? And then that testimony, is it capable of bringing that trafficking ring down, or is just an ordinary testimony? You know, we are talking of funding, we are talking of resources. So whatever we are doing, we must do it thoroughly and make sure that we can get a conviction from whatever services we give the victim. Our aim is to get the trafficker. Our aim is to get that conviction. So all our services, all our efforts must be geared towards getting that conviction while protecting the victim, the witness. And then the memorandum of understanding. We've spoken of referral. I made mention of the national referral mechanism which NAPTIP uses. Because when you are providing a victim witness protection service, I said the victim witnesses come with so many problems. Medical, for example. If you find out that the victim has HIV, and we in NAPTIP, we don't do everything. We have referrals with psychiatric hospitals and other government establishments. You refer the victim so that when she's relocated, she can continue her medical treatment. And when she feels that, oh, my medical treatment is still being provided and being looked after, oh, these people really want my well-being, she will testify against that trafficker. Don't abandon her. You don't abandon her. For the fact that she's in a witness protection program, you provide housing for her, good accommodation. She's meant to keep a low profile wherever she is. So whatever you are doing, you must do it well. Then the MOU too will state the terms and conditions. She mustn't speak to her former friends. She mustn't speak to the trafficker or any of his friends, or else they'll be able to trace her. And then you must let her know the scope of what services you are going to provide for her. Yes, we are going to put you in school, or we are going to provide medical services for you. But that doesn't mean that the new boyfriend you have just got, we are also going to provide medical services for you. That doesn't mean that the new boyfriend you have just gotten is going to come and live with you where you are. Those terms must be stated. And it must also state that she's coming into the program voluntarily. You are not forcing her, and she must sign. She must sign. Because everything you are doing, like we said before, must be based on legislation and policy. What are the responsibilities of the parties? Responsibility of the Protection Authority. Making arrangements to protect the lives of the witness. We relocate the witness, issue new personal documentation. For example, my name is Tolu. If she's bearing Tolu here now, when you relocate her, you may relocate her and let her bear Ngozi where she is. You change her identity. You have to be very, very careful. All her, if she has a particulars, email, all, you change everything. But make sure you are carrying her along. She's aware of the plan. She's being carried along. They are very intelligent. They read meanings into whatever you are doing. So be as plain as possible with them. They can misread whatever you are doing for them. Provide financial support for an infinite period of time. She has relocated. She doesn't have any means of livelihood. Provide initial assistance with job training and finding new employment. Provide counseling and other social services, including appropriate education. For example, in cases involving international relocation or children. Children are the most difficult for you to put in evidence because they don't know how to keep. They may say, uncle, have you seen our mommy? Hey, they'll start telling stories that you didn't ask them for. So you need to provide, and you also need to ensure that counseling is still being provided for them. It's trauma we are talking about. It's not just any ordinary sickness. They still need counseling. They still need to be told that they are worth something. extending protection and benefit to persons accompanying the witness in the program. Strategies for relocation and identity change. A new identity is achieved by changing of personal documents, passports, considering of the socio-cultural context. Socio-cultural context, if I speak Igbo, for example, now, and I'm being relocated, I may be in Abuja, and I'm being relocated to maybe Lagos. But the Lagos they are going to relocate me, it must be done in such a way that in that environment, if there's a small community of people that are speaking Igbo there, I will be put there, so that the cultural shock wouldn't be too much for me. And then so that I don't stand out as an outsider. So that when you are trying to integrate, it's done very easily. Nobody will know that she's an outsider. You start raising issues and people will start wondering and start asking questions. Information relating to the witness, including criminal and financial situation. You know, when these victims are repatriated, they could be voluntarily or they could be involuntary. So when they come, most of them have worked so many years in Italy, for example, and then they've rented apartments over there, fully furnished apartments. They are big girls. When they come in, they are big girls. Not that they want of money or anything. Fully furnished apartment with fridge, television, all that. So when they come, it's a problem because they don't want to settle down here in Nigeria. Because what are you offering them? There's nothing. Technologically, what are you offering them that is so fantastic that you are bringing them back? So what we try to do at times, and it's a bit difficult, if some of them have more dollars in their accounts, it's difficult to get these monies back. Even their properties, even if we could get the dollar equivalent here and then refurbish those apartments again, it would be nice. But those are the issues we still have to work on. Obligations, responsibility handed over to the receiving country. Financial costs, receiving country. Integration. When they come, it is the responsibility of Nigeria to see that these victims are integrated very well into the society. The sending country has handed everything over to us. It's not their business anymore. It is our obligation. Other forms of international cooperation, third country or cooperation, occurs when a range of support services are provided by witness protection units of another country. Supposing now she's coming in from Italy and the flight is delayed or the weather is bad and she lands in Amsterdam or somewhere and she's still coming to Nigeria, they may not allow her to enter Amsterdam because she doesn't have a visa there. So, but if there's cooperation among everybody, then there's no problem. They will even assist her and put her on the next flight. They will give her accommodation. They may put her in a hotel. Implication of relocation and identity change for the witness. Compatibility of ethnic and cultural backgrounds. Cultural shock. It mustn't be too different from her culture. Language. You know, when you are counseling, if you don't understand the language of the victim witness, there must be an interpreter who is protection. You don't go and look for an accommodation that the rent is the totality of the budget for her program. No, it must be within reasonable means. If she's been a big girl in Italy, when she comes to Nigeria here and enters the program, she must be able to come down. Yes. She must be able to go adjust. Physical well-being. We've talked of the medical services. You must ensure that she's taken care of. Provide referral where necessary. Ability to become self-sufficient. You know, it's because she wasn't self-sufficient that she became trafficked. It's because of poverty she became a trafficked person. It's because of poverty due to gender inequality she became a victim of human trafficking. It is because of gendered policies that she became a victim of human trafficking. So all services that you are going to provide for her must be sensitive. Thank you very much. Responsibilities of the parties continued. Responsibilities of the victim, the obligation not to compromise directly or indirectly the protection or assistance provided as stated in the MOU. Complying with the protection authorities' instructions regarding the assistance provided. Accommodation. If she's given accommodation, she must limit the number of visitors that come to her and the nature of those visitors. Traffickers are still looking around, looking for persons to traffic again. and they can come in different forms and in different ways. The obligation not to commit any crimes, fully disclosing information on her past, criminal history, financial and other legal obligation, the obligation to provide true testimony. For the fact that she's in the witness protection program, maybe she's feeling cool with herself. And you know, at times, their thinking can be out of this world. Maybe she feels that, oh, if she tells another lie or, you know, fantasizes that her story, hey, maybe this time around, Isikoyi or GRA Abuja, they are going to put her. This one that they put her in this mid-level class. So, but let her realize that if she changes her story, she's going to be sued for perjury. She should not tell lies and put the lawyer and all the institutional authorities in trouble. Because they'll feel that maybe because she has received one money, she's feeling fine. Now she be telling lies. The integrity of her initial testimony is put to question. Termination of the program. The program can be terminated either by the victim witness saying, I want to leave the program, or if she violates any of the conditions in the MOU. Termination of the program. There's no set period during which a witness needs to remain financially dependent on a protection program. The duration depends on a number of variables. The witness violates the rules laid down in the MOU. The witness refuses to give evidence in court. The seriousness against the threat, the seriousness of the threat against the victim's life is lessened. What are the consequences? Every action, every inaction has consequences. Personal or human. The trafficking of victim witnesses, if trafficker is not punished, for justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. And like I said, they are very intelligent. She has testified against the trafficker. The trafficker has been convicted, but what has she seen to be done? Have his assets been seized? Have you sold those assets? Have those assets, when sold, have they been put in a fund and are used to rehabilitate her, to empower her? Because when you do that, it is not only her. She will spread the stories among the other victims that she knows, who will also stand up and testify, not only her own trafficker, but also against other traffickers. Stigmatization and ostracization of victim witnesses by the community for testifying against the trafficker. When we were talking about the nature of the relationship between the victim and the trafficker, it is very relevant in the type of protection procedure you want to use, because the trafficker may be her husband, may be her boyfriend, and she would not want to testify against him because of the relationship between them. That is what we refer to as Stockholm syndrome. When she starts having affection towards the trafficker, instead of being angry at him for treating her such, he may be her cousin, that if you are going to her house, you have to pass the front of their house. It may be her cousin that they eat together in the house. So those are the problems that one would have. Once the family knows that, oh, she has testified against him, they will victimize her, they will ostracize her. When she goes back to that community and is looking for employment, nobody wants to employ her. There's what's going on. They can even gather the youth in the community and they start shouting and, you know, doing all sorts of things in front of her house. Now you testify against this one. That brother, where they give me dress. That brother, where they give me shirt. Now you do, you know, they will just make her life hell. Reprisal attacks from the traffickers, which could lead to death of the victim, witness, or members of their family. The trafficker has said he's going to kill her, he's going to kill her family. He may eventually end up doing so. Victim family members avoid court proceedings out of fear of threats from the trafficker. Victim witness disclose information about the shelter and reveals the identity of protection officers, thereby exposing them to attacks from the traffickers. You know, we said that initially during rehabilitation and protecting the victim, we need to put them in the shelter. We are protecting them. But I said that the shelter, the address must be kept a secret. So if she discloses the information about the shelter, the trafficker can go there and raid the shelter and kill all the victims there, also making the lives of those working there very, very in danger, at risk. Yes. Consequences continue. This is just a highlight of all we've been saying. In the course of the paper, we mentioned consequences as well, so this is just a highlight. Poor treatment of trauma experienced by victim witnesses could lead to mental illness such as depression, anxiety, and personality disorders. And when you are going to court and your victim is testifying, and a victim who has personality disorders which is not treated, she's incoherent, then you do not have a good testimony and you will not get a conviction. Absence of health services to victim witnesses could lead to epidemic of HIV/AIDS and other communicable diseases. Financial danger of trafficking leading to wastage of funds spent into the rehabilitation process and witness protection program. What are the benefits of the program? Restoration of self-esteem of the victim witness is restored, and they become functional and economically independent members of the society, increasing their human capital development. Conviction of criminal group leads to successful dismantling of organized criminal groups, leading to a reduction in the occurrence of trafficking in persons and deterrence of potential traffickers. Insight is gained into the operation and modus operandi of traffickers. This could also lead to the rescue of other victims still under the influence of traffickers. Conclusion. We've been talking about human trafficking. I hope I've not bored you. But there was a wise man, and I so much believed in what said. He said, for the dead and the living, we must bear witness to become a voice for the voiceless, for the weakest of the weak, and for the lowly of the lowest, for the victims of human trafficking. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I know we didn't get to look at here a little bit about the second paper, but indeed the presentations will be sent across to you, and you already have it inside your booklet already, and I'm sure we can read up on that. And it is now time for us to ask questions. It is now time for us to ask questions. So I want to invite all the present facilitators to please come forward. Please, we can. Yes, they're bringing the chairs. Please, all the presenters, please. Please let us bring chairs for all the presenters. I know you have your question. It is now time for you to ask your question. At this time, I want to recognize the presence of the Controller of Immigration Service, Cross River State Command, Calabar, the person of Mrs. Funke Cecilia Adeni. Please, you may stand for recognition. You're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome. Please, all the presenters, please, can you come and take your seat even as we ask questions? If you have questions, please, can you raise your hand? If you have question, please. We're inviting all the presenters to please stand. Please. You may also take a sheet to be able to record your question, because we'll take maybe 3 questions at a go and answer it before we go to the next. Please, you may sit. Can we bring it forward a little bit so that... Please, you may sit. So do you have any question? Any question? Okay, number 1.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Miss Glory Roberts. My question goes to Mrs. Tolulola. Okay. When you were talking about issue under termination of the program, and then you said that the seriousness of the threats against the witness life when it has been lessened. My question is, what are those factors that the agency can look at to determine whether the witness is out of threat? In other words, is it, yes. In other words, is it on the testimony of the witness? And like, what's the time frame that you look at in determining this issue to presume that this witness has actually left the threat zone?
Okay, number 2, please, can you? Number 2. Okay, she's here. She's over here.
Ebonyi State. I'm representing my commissioner. Supposing you have a case that you're handling and you started having calls, text messages that you should drop that case from politicians, godfathers, and godmothers, what do you do?
Okay, I'm sure we have enough people to answer you from NAFTIP officials. Please, number 3. the first answer has come from my lordship. He says you run away.
Yes, my question, there will be 2. First, to the Mrs. Odubeson, who took the angle that focused on part of her subject was protection. She talked about protection of witnesses, protection of victim, and all that. I want to know whether you have provision for the protection of prosecutors or prosecuting counsel, as it were, because often we know what we see in the course of prosecution. Question number 2 is not what is treated here. There are federal offenses like the one we are treating now that are supposed to be prosecuted by your people or Federal Ministry of Justice. Recently, it was announced that fiat has been granted to the attorneys general of all the states to prosecute federal offenses. Now the question is, if one is challenged, because you cannot take for granted that mere verbal declaration that fiat has been, you must tender. What do we do in such circumstance? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take this round of questions before we come back to the next round.
Thank you very much. How do you determine if the threat has been lessened? Well, like I said, there is a team working on the case of a victim, and investigation, once it starts, continues. So you will assess the level of the threat. You will find out. The investigation officers will go out, they will find out if by convicting the trafficker and putting him in jail, the activities of the organization have lessened, or they have generated into another angle, or it's been headed by another person. So it's a continual, you need to continue to check and check. It's not something, I know it's not a direct, but it's not something you can just say, yes, the threat is over. It's not.
The second question. I don't know who wants to. Yes. The second question.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try to give an answer to that one. Is there protection for prosecutors? For native prosecutors? None. Sometimes we find ourselves entering the same vehicle as the defendants, but we've been surviving. So maybe with this question, people here, policymakers, can take up our matter and make sure we have protection. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe we also have. Okay.
Sorry, can I add to that? It's not only the prosecutors that need protection. Even the counselors need protection. Yes. Because if I'm counseling a female victim, probably she's so traumatized, she cannot do without having, without having sex every day. And I'm counseling her, and she needs to have it. The next thing, whether you are a man or a woman, she can rape you. So the counselors do need protection. Everybody needs protection. It's not only, it's not only protecting the victims, but also protecting yourselves. But what you can do is to ensure that the ethics of your profession, you stick to them by being gender sensitive. A girl who is high on drugs, who cannot stay in one place, and you know that she wants it every time, you do not allow a male counselor to go near her. She will rape him. So, yes. So those are the issues. We also need protection. And apart from that, we also need protection, psychological stress. The stress on the job is much. Look at the stories we hear. we can, we can imagine it. But when you hear it, you will cry. So we also need to, because so that when we get home, it doesn't affect how we also relate to our husbands and our children. And then you can still get up the following day and come and see that victim and say, oh, how are you? Sorry, this and that. So everybody needs protection. Maybe like she said, like policymakers that are here, maybe that could also be put into consideration. Thank you.
I think in response to that question, we want to hear how that has been also handled in America. No, you can answer first. You can.
I think I want to attempt to answer the question that she raised. In case you are handling a case and you start receiving calls from north, south, east, and west, and some very influential people, how do you handle it? At least, I think it cuts across board. At the stage of arrest and investigation, calls may come. At the stage of the case being in court, calls will come. In that case, she's the one to answer. In Nigeria, and in case of America, US, we have another law enforcement officer here and another prosecutor here. They will also answer from their own side of the country. But let me talk about at least the one I know. One, even God forgives. God, our Heavenly Father. The law has to take its course when we are carrying out our investigation. Normally we receive calls, even in high-profile criminal cases or assets and financial cases handled by EFCC, calls are received. Even in cases that has to do with expatriate quota, that is immigration, passport racketeering, and other things, calls coming. So you use your discretion to handle it. But let me narrow down to human trafficking. We're talking about human trafficking here. There are instances that calls like that come in, and since there is provision for, at least so to speak, settlement out of court by way of financial compensation to the victim, when such cases come up and the pressure is much, the file is forwarded to legal, who now states, look at the magnitude of what had happened and the way the victim can be compensated adequately. That is for trafficking. The way the victim can be compensated adequately. Case you are handling, and if it's a case that conviction may likely come, because there are some cases that are not human trafficking cases, and once you start the elements, everything you are investigating, it's clear that the agency will not gain any conviction and the case cannot even go to court. Still, you try to resolve it, settle it, and know what to do. Then, as I was saying, the legal officer also is here. She will also come up with her own side before you.
I want to remain seated, by your permission. Please, what I want to add here is that when such calls are made, we don't have any authority. We don't have any authority to decide what happens. We refer the case to the chief executives. So I can't stand here and say this is what we do or what we don't do. It is there, the management, that takes the decision. That's the status of such cases in NAPTIP. Even as I speak, cases like that keep coming in all the time. Because if you keep bowing to such authority, then the agency we can't achieve anything. We make a mess of the whole agency. So when they refer the files to us, we refer to the chief executives. He will now lay down what we ought to do, and whatever he says we'll do, that is what we do, because the box staffs at his table. That is the position of NAPTIP for now. Thank you.
And the final question on the issue of protection of prosecutors and the counselors and the other investigators involved. How has that been happening? How has that played out in America, in Utah?
So if I understand the question correctly,
Exactly.
there is no legal protection for prosecutors. Obviously, interfering with an investigation would fall under that. So if there are threats, we would have the ability to proceed against the person for witness tampering or interfering with the process, legal process. So there is those protections. We also, with the Attorney General's office, we have what's called the Internet Crimes Against Children that works with the exploitation of children in child pornography. And we have a wellness program which we've adopted the human trafficking prosecutor as well. So they have counseling available, and I require it of my prosecutors that they engage. This is for the Attorney General's question, I believe, where they have an initial assessment. It's all private. It has nothing to do with the office. They're not to be evaluated. That's their private record. And then they engage in counseling 3 to 4 times a year. And the only feedback we can get is that the counselor will encourage the prosecutor to ask for a transfer or some time off of those particular cases to ensure the wellness, the mental wellness of the prosecutor. So that's one way we protect their health, at least, because I think we had a conversation early on as to how,
the file is referred to somebody else. And on what basis is that? If that's the case, then, I mean, people will be doing that. So the question is, are there guidelines? And you had just mentioned something about interfering with prosecution. That's in the States. Now, if someone is calling, if somebody's being investigated and a quote-unquote big man or godfather is calling and making threats or suggesting, this case should be dropped, I'm thinking, well, that could also, in Nigeria, also be a form of intimidation, interfering with prosecution, and there should be consequences. So I want to understand from NAPTIP, are there guidelines? What do you do when these things occur? And, other than saying it's referred to somebody else upstairs.
In Nigeria and in NAPTIP, when you receive such calls, as an officer, you have people that are senior to you. There's this organogram, the hierarchy. You don't take decisions without the management in such cases. So you refer you minute the file, or you can go orally and complain to your immediate boss. For example, for myself, I have a director that I'm under. I'll go and complain to the director. Then it is the duty of the director to take it up, because I don't have the authority to take decisions in such matters. For example, I'm not saying that is what happened. For example, if a governor calls me and says, this matter must be dropped, do you think, in all sincerity, that I have the authority to tell the governor to hell with you or to take decisions on what happens? No, I don't, in all reality. I have to take up the matter to my immediate boss. They will take the decision and tell me what to do. That's how it works. There is nothing written on how to proceed. This is just the way it goes. Yes.
Let's take the next round of questions, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to commend the presenters for a very incisive presentation that has given us sort of a global view with a comparative discussion of the position in Utah and Nigeria. But I think that something that comes out very clearly from the reaction of the audience is that the ethical issues. Clearly, there are quite a lot of ethical issues and challenges we have, particularly in our own environment. The specific example that was given is just one manifestation of the ethical challenges. And there's always the issue as to how to deal with those ethical issues. Other dimensions would include how do you, as a prosecutor or an investigator, for instance, maintain your relationship with the defense side? How do you maintain your relationship with the suspects, because you will be having interactions with them? And so it's very important that in our performing our jobs, we keep to high ethical standards. The first one is that you need to be courteous to those that you deal with, whether it's the victim, whether it's the suspect, whether it's the defense counsel, whether it's the prosecutor, whether it's the social worker, anybody that you're dealing with in the course of this work, you need to be courteous. Also, you need to be civil. Civil. You know, the problem at times, incidentally, I was a prosecutor for the federal government for many years before I switched over to being a defense counsel. So, so I've seen the two sides. I've seen the two sides of the coin. The particularly on the prosecution and investigation side, there is a certain sense of power that you have that power over whether it's the victim or the suspect, etc., and even the defense counsel. And as such, there is that tendency to abuse it, or it will seem so. So on the defense side, at times they feel they have political connection, or they have economic power. And there's that tendency for the professional, when he gets in as a counsel, to then exert that power. And that results a lot in breach of ethical standards. So civility, professionalism, and competence. I find that when I was a prosecutor, that most of my suspects, and I got several convictions incidentally, they respected me because they understood the way I did the case, that I was just doing my job. I just generally found a way to communicate that to them. In terms of how I behaved in court, in terms of how I related to them, they knew that I was just doing my job because I was civil, I was courteous, you know, and I was professional in how I did my work, and I exhibited competence. If you're preparing for the case, you have to be ready. You have to have the technical skill, and so they knew that if they wanted to deal with me, they had to do their work and have the knowledge and the skill to match me. And that became a sort of buffer for me. That you couldn't approach me. The issue didn't arise because you knew that I was professional. That I think is the advice that I'll give to the prosecutors who are here and the defense counsel, that you actually need to be professional. That is the basic protection that you get against pressures coming to you. If people know that you are professional when you are doing the job, and they know that you will be professional when they talk to you, they know exactly what to meet. And if they approach you, and they can approach you, I was just discussing with the learned senior advocate here, they can actually approach you, and they can approach you, consider how to resolve the matter. And there are so many options. There could be bargain, there could be policy considerations that would drive you to arrive at a professional conclusion that plea bargain is not even advisable and that you want to go for a conviction. It could be that your case is actually weak. And if you look at the situation in Nigeria, unlike the one in Utah, they don't have those little offenses. You saw the little offenses that Greg was talking about, like possessing travel documents without any valid reason. Now, it didn't say for trafficking, so you don't need to prove trafficking. You only need to prove that the man had another person's travel document and has no explanation for it. And that's very easy, low-hanging fruits you can get in terms of conviction. You know, perhaps we need to consider reform to have those lower-hanging offenses. They don't have to be tax offenses, but there will be offenses around documents, etc., that they cannot explain, that you can actually go for. So just that's my comment on the issue of the ethical issue. In terms of access to, in terms of counseling, in Ontario, where I also practice, the Law Society has sort of I wouldn't say that because they keep it independent, but they do have a consulting company, populated mostly by lawyers who are also counselors. And they have hotlines. People dial in this problem or that problem. It could be in terms of their work, just need advice, or it could be that they are having mental challenges. It's a very stressful job. And then they generally refer them to that consulting firm. And the bar association does not keep any record of what happens there, but they have their technique of how they deal with it, mentoring. They may refer you to other people who have lunch with you and tell you their own story. That may be all you need, you know. and they could take off for some time, etc. So there are different methods that they use to deal with that. And I think that perhaps NATIP should consider making sure that as an institution, it also has that resource available to its own workers, not just to the victims. Yes. Thank you very much.
I also join my brother Tony. Thank you for good presentation you have done. You have said most of the things I wanted to say, but I want to add that if NAPTIP is providing protection for the victims, why can't you provide protection for the prosecutors and the counselors themselves? Because it's the same thing as you have in, say, Minister of Justice. It's the same thing. Is it not the same thing? If if a prosecutor in the department of the director of public prosecution is handling a matter and he feels he's under some threat, I know that they usually request for protection and they usually get protection. Yes. They usually request for protection and you do get protection, I know. If you don't, it means you did not ask for protection. But then it looks ridiculous. If you could get protection for the victims and you can't get protection for yourself, who is doing the matter? I know when we were doing one matter, let me not mention the name, with Philip Ekpo of blessed memory in Akampa. Of course, the commissioner of police usually give him protection. He was coming with protection. Yes. And there are many such instances. So you shouldn't be vulnerable while you are doing your work, protecting the victim, and then you don't get protection. I know if you want to stretch it to that point, even the judges most of the time do not get protection. And those are the problem in our own system. But we should have an inbuilt system where you should be able to get protection and insist on getting protection if you require protection.
Thank you very much. At least the prosecutors have actually said that there is no protection. So we need to make a request like she has said. Please, let's take that question before.
Of the PFN, all manner of people who should be relying on God but rather have armed policemen. All kinds of people, and I know there are just not enough policemen to do the proper jobs. On NAPTIP and phone calls, there's a prosecutor's code. We have it in Lagos. It's written that says that any attempt to influence a prosecutor by whatever means will be reported and treated as a crime. It's a criminal offense. So I don't understand this going up to the chief executive. Sorry, NAPTIP needs a code. If you want protection, you first of all have to define the threats that you want to be protected against and punish the perpetrators. That's the view on that. My third question is purely technical. It's on this issue of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which some states have. We started it in Lagos, and others, as usual, have followed or are following. But the basic thing is this. The first question is, can NAPTIP cases be tried in state courts? That's the first question. And if a NAPTIP case, which is a federal agency and a federal offense, is filed in a state high court, then does the AJ's Act apply? Or because if that is the case, then you really don't need to domesticate in every state. If the offense draws with it the application of the Act, So I'm not clear on that, and I'd like to know what the position is. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll pass. Let them respond to this set of questions and comments. Yes, let them respond. Really, they have.
Quickly, just to answer Altaro's question, our law, we file cases in state high courts because we have 8 zonal commands, and they're all in the states. So we file, even in our law, it's provided that we can file, yes. So the state high courts have jurisdiction, yes. So, yes. The state, yes, the state. The state. Unless, for example, in Cross River State that have domesticated the ACTA, they can use ACTA. But if not, you use the state law, the state procedural act, yeah.
Any other comment on it? We can take more comments. I think one more set of comments. One more set, okay.
Mine is a question.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. My question goes to the NAPTIP official. I think my first 2 questions. The first one is, how does NAPTIP fit in an exploitative activities that are a bit more localized and do not involve trafficking in the sense of movement, migration, like the RACS, is it the RACS model? Most of these victims were boys in the same locality, I think so, in the same neighborhood. It did not involve movement, or transnational movement, or movement from rural to urban. How does NAPTIP fit in and localized activity? The second one is, what is NAPTIP doing as regards awareness for prospective offenders? I think NAPTIP should also, it's my own thinking that NAPTIP should also do some awareness in the sense of preventive justice, involve NGOs, go to schools, and actually feed the maybe students, or with the need to have this sense of humanity over above their needs, their wants, their desires, their prospects. What is NAPTIP doing in that regard? And I don't know if I should stretch this a bit further. I think I will direct this to Mr. Gregory and Late Muta, still on the RACS model. I would like us to further rationalize the jurisprudential basis for criminalizing certain dimensions of exploitation, like the seemingly victimless situation. Let's say you have sex workers, commercial sex workers, and the person who is seemingly exploiting them, they have this relationship, this consensus relationship that, okay, you work for me, I go out and make the money, I pay you a certain percentage. They could even see it as infringing on their right to work if if you stop them. And certain states or certain countries are quite reluctant about outrightly criminalizing or stopping prostitution. Those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Any more question? Question? Please, there's one more question. Okay?
Yeah, my name is Godswill Udo. My question goes to Mr. Gregory. When you were giving the narrative about, is it Rax, okay. I personally observe that there seems to be an opening. When the man died, you were building your case on drugs, right? And my basic knowledge through books, movies, and all that has proven that nobody deals on drugs business alone. It takes a lot of cartel for you to distribute. That is to say that that gentleman is only dead as an individual. His cronies are on the streets, possibly recruiting another younger kids. What do you think ought to have been done to reduce the capacity of such reoccurrence? Because I have a strong conviction that one man is only dead. There are other street, the likes of Rack, whatever his name is, you know. So you get my point, you know, because these things are very realistic. For example, I want to give you a Nigerian situation. Private universities have this exposure to foreign students. Whenever they go on holidays abroad, summer holidays, they come back with a new education on drugs use. So when they come back, some parents discover that their children becomes unnecessarily humble, unnecessarily happy, because they've been introduced to drugs, because of the likes of that, is it rack or whatever. So please, I want you to tell me what you think, because there's an opening, definitely there's an opening, that nothing was done about how rack died and who are his associates in having the drugs.
Sorry, bring the microphone. There's a student here that has a question. Please. There's a student in front here that has a question. A student in front.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. My name is Joy Okado. My question goes to the NAPTIP officials. You know that during legal proceedings, when a witness turns hostile, witness is it to be your witness, you now go against the witness. Now, seeing that this victim witness is a victim, you're trying to protect that individual. Now, what if in a situation where that individual now turns hostile, refusing to now testify those things that she has told you secretly? Will you now go against that? Will you not turn the victim witness hostile, or will you still use your circumstantial to protect the victim?
Good question. So we'll take this round of questions first, because we have had 3 already.
The question goes, giving an answer to the other person that asked about public enlightenment. What is NAPTIP doing about enlightening the public or educating the public? We have 8 zonal formations in the country and the headquarters. On monthly basis, we carry out public enlightenment activities on the different zones and NAPTIP headquarters, meaning at least to some extent, Nigerians are aware of the activities of human trafficking and NAPTIP as an agency. But definitely, NAPTIP needs to do more, but enlightenment activities is carried on. And there are 2 questions you asked. I don't think any of us really got the other parts of your question, because we've been brain racking and we don't quite hear what you asked.
Okay, the first question I asked. Okay, the first question I asked was, my name is Kebe Iwara. Sorry, MBA, Nigerian Bar Association. The first question I asked is, how does NAPTIC fit in exploitative activities that are a bit more, localized? Because from the NAPTIC Act, okay, you have somebody in, just like the Racks model, you have somebody in the same neighborhood. It does not involve movement from one place to one state to the other, from one nation. It's not transnational. It does not involve migration.
I now understand your question. To us, whether it's inside Nigeria or outside Nigeria makes no difference. Exploitation is exploitation. In Abuja, you get cases, even here, get cases of maybe child labor, sexual exploitation and all that. That it is in Nigeria doesn't mean that NAPTIP will not take care of it. The catchword there is exploitation. If it is found that somebody has exploited another person, whether through forced labor, sexual exploitation, harvesting of organs, we must prosecute. So don't think that maybe because it happens in Nigeria, or maybe if a neighbor exploits another neighbor because it's in Nigeria, we'll forget about it. It doesn't happen. So I hope that gets taking care of your question. Okay. There's another one. He asked 3 questions.
Okay, the last question I asked was directed to Mr.
No,
it's Mr. Nate. Okay. I was trying to say that I would like them to further rationalize the jurisprudential basis for criminalizing certain dimensions of exploitation. For example, that are based on the seemingly victimless situations where you have a commercial sex worker is in concert with the person who is exploiting him, but he doesn't see the person as an exploiter, but she sees it as a business relationship where she goes out and they makes profit and makes returns. And, she might even see it as her right to work. And if she tries to be stopped, she will see it as a violation of her right to work. And some nations and some states are even reluctant in criminalizing prostitution. So how do you really criminalize this activity that is based on consent, mutual consent? I don't know if you get the question.
Okay, so a couple things come to mind when you're asking that is, if it is truly a consensual act, then we don't have human trafficking, right? Because we have to prove that force, fraud, or coercion over the individual that's involved in the sex trade, and so we could potentially put together a different kind of case, like a exploitation of prostitution. What are some other charges? Yeah, that's probably the biggest one. Pattern of unlawful activity, which is like a racketeering type question. We can go after money laundering. I mean, there's all different kinds of things that you can do to still target the business. That may be a consensual business between the trafficker or the pimp and the sex worker. So it's all fact dependent. So if we don't have the force, fraud, or coercion, we don't have human trafficking. So.
And a lot of the time, so we're the state level. We've talked about different levels. You got the federal level, the state level, and the local level. A lot of the time, we'll turn the case, if it's a case of consensual acts, we'll turn the case over to the local police department to decide how to do that, because it's about resource allocation. And so we're always moving towards looking for the trafficker and always trying to find where the money and the trafficking is occurring so that we can address the victims. So when we have we have consensual actors and we don't have any facts or evidence to determine otherwise, we'll send it to local jurisdiction to address the prostitution or engaging in prostitution, which in the United States is illegal, at least in most states when it's unregulated. I think in Nevada it's regulated in a way that, if that's happening, they wouldn't have any course of action. So, and then what was... What?
So you're talking about the drug distribution, correct? So a couple things. First of all, the drug distribution part isn't necessarily our focus. However, we're not going to ignore it, right? We essentially we wanted to focus on what RACS was doing, and stop him from victimizing other people. The drugs were secondary until we arrested Rax. And then once we arrested Rax, we took the same information and you build a different case against the people that were supplying his drugs to him. And so we didn't necessarily ignore the drug distribution portion of it. We just kind of tabled it for a little bit until we got victims out of harm's way. So.
Rax actually opened up that resource allocation when he killed himself. We, all our resources that we had to take the trafficker and convict him and put him in prison were then expanded. We did charge. We had some witness tampering. We had drug distribution. We had a bunch of stuff going on. There are also other agencies. I think if you remember, Nate had mentioned that he had been previously deported 8 different times, and so there were other agencies that knew about his drug distribution or what cartel. We were all hands-on for 3 months. Yes. Yeah. Look, that's a great question, and if that's let me just answer that if that's not your question. Rax acted alone, incredibly enough. He managed this operation by himself. We didn't have other co-conspirators. We had people that we had levels of implication. No, like, man, you should have known that, or you did know it, but you didn't act. Things like that. So lesser culpability. The brother that I spoke about that received the witness tampering request to go out and tamper. I did file against the witness for the brother for witness tampering. For better or for worse, tactically, maybe it was a bad decision. Maybe it was not a bad decision. But I asked the judge to sanitize the evidence that came in, meaning that normally the government would want to bring in all the evidence to convince the jury that this is meaningful and impactful and give the reason why this witness tampering occurred. In this case, in order to not re-victimize the victims, I did not want the victims coming in to testify. So I sanitized the case, and he was acquitted because the jurors... Yes. Yeah, he had a posse of about 5 kids at any one time, and he's just rotating them through. And that's our belief as well. You know, sometimes you have cases where you believe other people were involved. He kept it really tight, and the benefit for him by keeping it so tight was that there wasn't anybody that knew what he was doing. In fact, and this is heart-wrenching, which is the cooperator father didn't even know his own kids over the years had been perped on. That's how good Rax was. So as unbelievable as it is, he was a lone wolf, and he was really good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please let us give a very good round of applause to these our presenters. They have been marvelous, and even in this question and answer time, they have really done marvelous again. And we are so sorry we couldn't take all the questions, but we need to leave here by at least by 5 o'clock. We are concluding now. And at this juncture, I will call His Lordship, even to make the closing remark before he gives out the certificate to the attendants. Your Lordship, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity of making a closing remark at this very educating workshop. I have learned a lot. Let me take the liberties of this occasion to make 1 or 2 comments. In the Rax case, we were told that Rax was arrested after about 4 to 5 months of investigation. Am I right? In our own Nigerian case, Mr. Sien told us that immediately the wife of the welder reported that this man had impregnated the 13-year-old, they went and arrested him. That is the difference between us and you. We arrest before we look for the evidence.
Sometimes I would like to do that too.
I will also want to, you may not believe what I want to tell you now, but that is the truth. You will not believe that I, sitting as the equivalent of what you call a superior court judge, and even my friend Arthur Warren will not believe that I still take down court notes in longhand. My name is Okun, I write. I come from Iwan Babuyo, I write. My father died yesterday, I write. That is what we are doing till now. So my conclusion is that a society is only as good as its justice system. Until all of us in this climb decide to progress, we have not yet made up our minds to make progress. When we decide to, we will start with the justice system. We are trying to attract investment from the moon. Nobody wants to invest in a system where if you have a little conflict, financial conflict, will last 10 years in court. They still last in our courts till today. Having said that, I want to thank you, CWAG, NAPTIP, for having come to us with this workshop. I want to thank the Attorney General of Cross River State, a very proactive person, because I know that it is somebody like him who can attract this thing here. Otherwise, we never do such things. This one is, I'm being personal now. Let me thank my friend, schoolmate, youth corps mate. We did youth corps 1980-81. Sir Arthur Warren, for coming to Calabar. The SANs have left. I want to thank them. Everybody who has come, I thank God that he brought you here. And I also know that he will return all of us back to our different destinations in peace. Thank you for coming. Come again to Calabar. You will enjoy it here. It's cool. There's no crime here.
Thank you so much, Your Lordship, for that assurance. I will really think about relocating to Calabar. Thank you so much. At this juncture, Your Lordship, we want to beg your indulgence to come and hand out the certificate. Please, if you hear your name, please come forward. Barrister Atek Alobi. I Alobo. I Alobo. An1 W An1. Ikebe Iwara. Okoronkwo. TM Okoronkwo. JM Okoronkwo. Mary Abang. Mary Abang. Paul Ezoke Samson. Ebere Lene Ndubweze. Naomi Achete Obi Bisong. Osemwige Israel. Joy Angorika Ukede. Davis Emmanuel Ulakran. I'm so sorry for what I'm doing to your names. So sorry. Glory Ekomobong Robert. Brian Agianye. Brianna. Nicholas Carlo. Ube Michael. Mudiaga Afe. Anyete Akman. Amugo Ijom M. Blessing Egu. Basi Inyang. Saleh Ahmed. Barrister Angela Obi. Barrister Anthony Effium. Mrs. Florence Agbiji. Mrs. Florence Nkechi Onwa. Dr. Mrs. Rose Ohiama Ube. Barrister A.U. Onukube. Dixon Arikbo. Mbai Ukweni, SAN. Abdullahi Zachary. Okay. Abdullahi Zachary. Ikmi Otu. Obase Obu Etio. Thank you for understanding. John Ume. Mrs. Ebele Ebo. Mrs. Beatrice Awa. Barrister I. A Kona. Barrister P.S. Bisong. Barrister Godwin Honor. Barrister Godwin. Barrister A.E. Akan. Barrister Stella A. Iki. Barrister Onem N. Nelson. Funke Cecilia Adewiye. Barrister Linda Asukwa. Roland. Ume Carlo SN. Yes, his DPP was supposed to collect for him. Ume Carlo SN. His DPP was supposed to collect for him. SN Peter. Okay. Mrs. Tolu Odukbeson. Nate Muter. Gregory Fabrashi. Mr. F. Atawari. Chief Anthony Idigbe, SAM. Mr. John Edozie. Mr. Marcus Green. Please, you will now present to your lordship, sir. His own. You present to him. Thank you so much, Your Lordship, sir. Thank you. Your Lordship, sir, you've not presented mine.
Okay, what's her name? Mrs. Ebele Chukwuenega.
Thank you so much. You may go back to your seats. Wonderful, wonderful presenters. We thank you so much for being here. We also appreciate it. Please, you will get yours when we get outside there, please. Thank you so much for attending. And in that regard, I will call on Dr. Mrs. Ukbe to come and give us a closing prayer.
Please, may we bow our heads in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we are eternally grateful to you, O Lord, for making it possible for us to come for this one-day workshop and for being with us all through this period. Father, we are praying that all the knowledge that we have acquired, we're going to use it to the glory of your name and to our benefit and the benefit of the human race. In Jesus' name. Lord, as we are living, we are not leaving your presence, so Lord, let your presence go before us. Let your presence be behind us to guide and protect us in Jesus' name. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Thank you so much. If you want more information on the materials presented here today, you can go to the website and get the materials. And also, if you have your email address well noted, you're going to receive If you noted your email address well, you also receive copies of all the presentation made here today. Thank you very much. And you also receive information on the next workshop. Thank you.